Thank you for joining us for Way 31 News at 10. I'm Dan Schaefer. 2 arrests, more than 200 grams of fentanyl off Huntsville streets after the separate arrests of these 2 men in the last few days. We've been digging through arrest records of fentanyl trafficking suspects Vander Mingledolf and Patamer Sane. Tonight, and only on Way 31, Brittany Harry investigates in our special report, Poisoned, Alabama's Fentanyl Crisis. And Brittany, you spent the afternoon with drug investigators and HEMSI officials who respond to the growing number of overdose calls.
Well, that's exactly right, and they are witnessing all of this firsthand. So HEMSI says that they've responded to more than 60 overdose calls this month. Last month, more than 80. In the North Alabama Drug Task Force, aware of this, also seeing the problem firsthand, saying that they're now focusing their efforts on fentanyl as these overdoses and deaths continue to rise.
So what we've seen from the beginning of this year compared to the beginning of last year, we've seized almost 7 times the amount of fentanyl off the streets.
Making getting the drug off the streets a top priority for the North Alabama Drug Task Force right now. These are just some people who have recently been arrested on drug charges in North Alabama, specifically related to trafficking fentanyl. They each had a combined more than 20 grams of the drug in their possession. Patamer Sane of Atlanta was recently found with about 100 grams of fentanyl, but he was arrested before any of it was distributed in Huntsville.
Sometimes we put out there fentanyl, it might not look a large amount that's been seized, but say you get 100 grams, you only need 4 for it to be trafficking. And you might spend $100 buying a gram of fentanyl, and you might, an overdose could be a point of a gram, a tenth of a gram.
It only takes 2 milligrams of fentanyl for it to be potentially deadly, according to the Drug Enforcement Administration. The drug is about 100 times more potent than morphine.
We all are creatures of habit, but we all have addictive behaviors, but this stuff is killing people, and there's no coming back.
So far this year, HEMSI has responded to more than 200 overdose calls. They averaged 63 calls in January, about the same in February, 84 calls in March, and so far this month, about 63. Last year, HEMSI averaged about 76 calls a month.
We knew that they increased dramatically in 2021. Not for sure why. We attribute a lot of it to the COVID and people being shut in or not able to work and those kind of issues. But the numbers are still holding pretty true for the first quarter of this year.
In the first 18 months of the pandemic, a record number of Americans died from drug overdoses, according to the CDC. Madison County Coroner Tyler Berryhill says he's seeing a drug-related death every 72 hours. If an overdose results in death, the North Alabama Drug Task Force is always called in to investigate.
We gather as much intel as we can. There's a federal prosecution that comes with that, and we try to assist with that as much as we can, and we also use it for intelligence gathering. So we'll pick our targets and go accordingly.
Lieutenant Ramsey says typically drugs are making their way to Huntsville from other cities like Atlanta and Birmingham. So the goal, he says, is to prevent that from happening. And right now, meth is also being seized in large amounts, according to Lieutenant Ramsey. I do know that HEMSI and the North Alabama Task Force members of that task force are always carrying Narcan at all times. Coming up tomorrow on Way 31 News at 10, we continue this series in Marshall County, where I will be talking to the coroner there about what he's seeing in that county. Of course, the upticks and, sadly, overdose deaths. But for now, I'm reporting live in Huntsville. Brittany Harry, Way 31 News.